Hey folks, this is Waylon Lewis, and we're here to talk about getting fracked. We're about to get fracked here in my hometown, Boulder, Colorado, where I grew up, and I am here with this good-looking gentleman, is Sir Dan Leftwich, hailing from London, England. Not really Boulder, Colorado, but I am told that he has some titles conferred by the Queen for defending Boulder against the evil fracking powers that be. So first of all,
I've been knighted.
Let me ask a series of dumb questions. Number one, I know all liberals everywhere think fracking is bad. We think fracking is bad, Walmart is bad, Monsanto is bad, and probably Trump is bad. Why is fracking bad from a practical business, scientific health point of view?
Because it uses chemicals that are harmful to the environment. It emits massive amounts of methane, greenhouse gases that we're still trying to calculate how much they emit from all the various processes that are involved in fracking and the impact on the climate crisis. And we now know that the cancer-causing chemicals that are emitted in the drilling and producing process in close proximity to neighborhoods and schools is extremely harmful to public health.
So just from a practical point of view, there's this thing, we're redesigning our website right now. People might be relieved to hear. There's this practical thing, I forgot what the term is, but if someone has to wait more than 10 seconds for a page to load, they leave. So what we're doing with fracking, to make an analogy, is when we turn on our, we want natural gas to like cook our pancakes on Saturday morning. We're, in effect, when we use fracking gas, we're drilling like how far down, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feet, and then sideways, and then we're pumping it full of nasty chemicals. We're using tons of fresh water, which is already, we're in a drought. And then we're leaking like some ridiculous percentage of it, 20 or 40% on the way to delivery. So it's like literally the least efficient way of getting energy that you could make up. And it's just ridiculous. Like even like in Tolkien, like Mordor, there's no way they would use fracking because it's just so inefficient, especially when we have other ways of doing things. Is that a fair assessment?
That's fair, and it's also economically inefficient, massively.
Right.
Because fracking at this, even if you don't include the massive environmental costs as the externalities of fracking,
even if you don't care about the environment.
Right. Just the sheer production costs at current prices, $50 a barrel of oil, let's say. No fracking companies are making money. They're not making money at $70 a barrel. They're not making money, most of them, at $80 a barrel. Okay? So the only reason why they're fracking is to keep cash flow coming in, because the depletion rates for these fracking wells are so high, so fast, they have to keep drilling, find more wells to drill faster in order to keep the economics even to the point where they don't go bankrupt. Right? So the only way this is even being done is because the Federal Reserve is making cheap money available, through junk bonds that they can go out and use, and by forcing people into these risky investments so that fracking companies have cheap money. That's the only way they're operating. It's a Ponzi scheme.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and that's at the cost of our health, our safety, our environment, our water.
And earthquakes are being caused, tons of little earthquakes like in Oklahoma. Right. And again, water is a super precious resource. It seems silly. Like even if I don't care about the environment, it seems economically silly. So why is, I remember, we were a sponsor of the Sustainable Living Fair, I think it was called, in Fort Collins years ago. And guess who the keynote speaker was? We all loved him at the time. Governor Hickenlooper.
Yes.
So he was this great, amiable environmentalist. Now I would have to say so-called environmentalist. So he has been, even as a Democrat, repeatedly running over the votes of, like in Longmont, they voted to ban fracking. All kinds of, no one wants fracking in their backyard.
Right.
So why is a liberal so-called environmentalist like Governor Hickenlooper, who I have interviewed, why is he pro-fracking?
Well, first, in his background, he's a former petroleum engineer for a small oil company, right? So he has that background.
Right.
And the massive amounts of money being contributed by the oil and gas industry through all kinds of front groups, you can never trace the money, right? It's truly dark money. But we know that there are groups that have been supporting him that enable him and encourage him to run over these local communities. And all in the service of what he has even admitted is to protect the mineral owners' rights. Okay, and mineral owners is a catchphrase basically for oil and gas companies at this point, right? Where it makes a difference. Yes, there are farmers who are mineral rights owners, but it's in large part developers and oil and gas companies. They lease the mineral rights, and in that process, there's something called forced pooling, where they only may have a lease for one small mineral right tract, but they force all other mineral rights owners to lease their rights so that an oil and gas company can frack a larger pool and then make whatever money it can make, right? So it's not only inefficient, it's a major violation of other people's rights. Let's say somebody in Boulder County owns their mineral rights, doesn't want to lease them because
they own a farm.
Right.
They own a nice organic farm, and they're like trying to save the bees and sell their kale at farmers market. And then a fracking company can come in and frack right under their property.
Not only that, force them to lease their mineral rights to a fracking company that's going to basically destroy the water supply and pollute the environment. But also, that fracking company can force that landowner to give that company access to the surface estate, to put an oil well, to put a fracking well on their land.
Wow.
That's how bad it is in this state. Right? And the governor has been out there basically trumping their rights over the rights of municipalities, the rights of local communities, the rights of landowners, the rights of mineral rights owners who want to keep those and maybe never lease them, so that their land, for example, our open space in Boulder County, we have more than 100,000 acres of open space in which we have conservation easements, right? The people don't own the mineral rights under a lot of that land. But I assume and I trust that there are a number of people in Boulder County who don't want those mineral rights to be developed, right?
Right.
And so that's a major fight that Governor Hickenlooper has been out there running roughshod over local communities. Now, except when it came to Boulder County during an election year. Okay.
What did he do then?
Well, Boulder County had issued a moratorium in 2013.
Right. We pushed off, so they're trying to frack in Boulder, which is kind of like trying to, kill the last unicorn and the last unicorn or something. Boulder is this eco town. We all like to bike around and try and be responsible and, shop local, support farmers. And so they're trying to frack, and fracking will be legal here, right?
In unincorporated Boulder County.
Right.
Okay.
All the farms and all that.
That's right. The city of Boulder, we still have a 5-year ban on fracking.
But in only 5 years they could frack right in the city?
We have a 5-year ban that we imposed by an initiative, okay? A people's initiative.
But he's run over people's votes in Longmont.
That's correct, but he hasn't, and the oil and gas industry hasn't sued Boulder, the city of Boulder, over that. And curiously, why not, all right?
Donations?
Probably, and Governor Hickenlooper doesn't want to tick off his most liberal constituents, right? But they've threatened, and he's threatened He said any city that does this, he's going to authorize a lawsuit, right?
So we have a question from, so anyone who's watching, feel free to ask a question, say where you're from, you know the drill. Camille, if they frack on someone's certified organic property, since landowners don't have mineral rights, you're saying, does that mean the frackers disqualify and destroy the organic property and aren't held accountable? It's a nice question.
That's correct,
So then
unless the
could I sue for
landowner
Yeah.
sues for
Right.
damages or constitutional rights violations, but then it's up to the landowner to do that. Right?
Right, and it's expensive, it's a lot of their
Meanwhile,
time.
they're going against the state because the state uses what's called preemption, a doctrine which says state government is superior to local governments in most cases, and therefore, when the state passes a law, like the law allowing oil and gas companies to walk onto your surface estate and put a drilling rig in, right? So you're facing the state then, and the power of the state, including the governor.
So, I don't know, have you seen Braveheart, the movie?
Yeah.
In Braveheart, there's this whole scene about prima nocte. Do you remember that notion?
I don't remember that.
So it's basically like the government in this corrupt English takeover of Scotland was allowed to go in and just take the wife from any new marriage.
That's
and it's
basically
almost like
preemption.
that. Yeah, they
That's
can go
basically
in and
preemption.
destroy your farm, destroy whatever. You can try and sue them, but you know you'll get run
But
over.
here's the thing,
Yeah.
and this is what I've been working on as a constitutional rights attorney.
And are you? So what's your role in all this?
Well, I've been helping people and communities since 2009 figure out their constitutional rights, okay, versus their city government's rights, and so their individual rights, including their rights to pass initiatives and their rights to protect their own health, safety, and their own property against the state. And in a lot of these cases, the city government is even acting in collusion with the state, right, and the industry. So this is what I do, is I help people understand what their rights are, right? So let's say that
So just let me ask you another personal question. So how did you come to be involved? Because this seems like a what do you call it, like Don Quixote, like not the not the most practical thing for a lawyer to do.
Exactly. Well, for a long time, I was a plaintiff's class action litigator.
Okay.
In Washington D.C.
I don't know what any of that meant.
Well, bringing cases against major corporations for antitrust violations,
You're like
monopolization.
you're like the Julia Roberts of what was that?
Sort
name?
of, yeah. I had a small firm with a couple of other lawyers, but we did joint ventures with other law firms so that we could pool the resources to take on big corporations, right? And so
You're like a lawyer people like.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Speaking
it's
of unicorns.
unique, isn't it? So after 9/11 and all that craziness in D.C., my family, we moved to Boulder, and I still practiced with my law firm because it was all around the country. Until I left the firm, I started getting inspired by Father Thomas Berry's work, who was one of the great eco theologians and philosophers on the planet. And he opened my eyes to the impact of climate change, corporate dominance of the planet, extraction industries.
Father Thomas Berry. So I have to read something of his.
That's right.
Is he alive right now?
No, he died a few years ago at age 94, I think. But
Was Hickenlooper involved in his death? Or?
No, I don't think so. We're still looking into that.
Yeah,
though.
okay.
But he was sort of the modern champion of the rights of nature movement. Okay, and so I got inspired by that, and so I started doing some writing and looking into the rights of nature and how the rights of nature could be protected legally, using my skills as a lawyer and a litigator. And then I started getting calls from people all along the Front Range in Colorado saying, oh my God, there's a drilling rig, that's now 500 feet from our house. My kids are starting to get nosebleeds, and what can I do?
And this is not people being weird who are like anti-vaccine. Like these drilling setups are devastating.
Yeah,
They're
they
disgusting, and they hide them behind these big noise curtains. And,
Well, now they do, but they didn't before.
Right.
Okay, they could have cared less. Okay.
well, either way, hiding them
And
or not hiding.
thousands of truck trips. Okay.
Right,
Big
right.
big trucks hauling water to be, used in the fracking process.
So if you're just tuning in, like Lindsay just said, say where you're from, and if you have any questions for Lawyer Dan about fracking and how your community can be involved in fighting fracking and what we can do instead, leave a comment. Let me just review a couple comments here. Yeah, so Nova Scotia, their government is also pursuing fracking. Cliff says, give them hell, Dano. Must be a friend of yours.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. We aren't allowing a single well in Boulder County. Yeah, I think a lot of people in Boulder County are going to become like NRA members and fight these frackers.
Well, we're definitely going to put our bodies on the line if it comes to it.
Right, we'll have daisies, not guns.
That's right.
We'll fight them with daisies.
Or squirt guns.
Yeah, exactly. It is getting, well, we don't have any water left because of the fracking, so
That's true.
Probably not squirt guns. All right, thank you, Dan, for what you do. It's wonderful that you truly stand up for the people and the earth. From Ali.
I thank you. That's great to hear. So, I started getting all these calls from people, different circumstances, and then so I have some personal injury background in terms of understanding, those kind of legal claims, and I knew
Did you have those big billboards? Have you been hit by a car? Call.
No, I've never done that kind of work, but I know class action work, and that's
cool.
And I also understand causation issues, and I knew it was very hard for those individuals to go against the oil and gas industry and litigation and prove that kind of personal injury claim. Right. So I started helping them understand other ways that they might fight. Why is it
hard to prove? I mean, if it's affecting your, the noise and it's bad for your children's health, and why is it hard to prove that?
Because the industry will always come in to court and say, well, how do we know that your lung problems are caused by fracking emissions?
Just because it started on the exact same month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of coincidental evidence, but you gotta show me with proof.
Right.
You have to have a doctor test your blood before fracking shows up. Right. You have to have tested your air quality before fracking showed up, so that you could show that before and after.
So would that be a way we could fight right now? Is we could test the air quality and have people test their blood?
And people are starting to do that now, and we're starting to develop sort of self-help techniques, and companies are being formed to develop those products, that are not industrial size.
Because they know now if they're coming in, and we've all tested everything before they got here,
right.
We're ready to sue them.
You got to be able to test your blood, know what chemicals were there beforehand,
right.
and it's harder to do when you've already been fracked. This is why Boulder County is so essential, that the pushback here, because we have. Yes, there's oil and gas development in Boulder County already, and we sort of acquired land for open space that already had, old style
right.
oil and gas development, but not fracking, right?
Yeah.
And so, but we have kind of a clean environment, right?
Yeah.
And we have these committed people, right? People who are committed to sustainability, and I mean, we've passed initiatives since 2005 to tax ourselves to institute sustainability programs, right? And our open space program is all built around resilience in the face of climate change and these pressures.
And this isn't just, I always like to point out, like, this isn't just a liberal thing. Boulder gets, greenest, best educated, best place to retire, healthiest, happiest overall, measured by 8 different factors. Yeah. Republicans, Democrats, everyone, libertarians, everyone loves to move here, right. and live here and raise a family here. And in that way, historically, it's been a really welcoming, wonderful place.
And the economy, this entire economy is built on health and wellness, right? And it attracts, funny how it attracts smart people, right? They want to live in a healthy environment.
Yeah, right? And then a few people like myself were born here, so you don't have to be smart. You're just allowed to stay.
But it has attracted people who think about the future, who think ahead.
Who think long term.
Right, and can see that, well, if we continue to go the way we're going, we're not going to have a livable environment. So what do we do now to make sure that 20, 30 years from now,
Right.
Those people, including our kids, have an environment that they can live in.
I love that. And that's what I always think when Republicans love to talk about family values. Like, real family values is caring about your children, caring about your grandchildren, and if you don't have children, caring about other people's next generations.
So let me tell you about what else is going on that I'm involved with. Right?
Okay.
I'm co-counsel for what are called the Earth Guardians youth plaintiffs. These are teenagers and preteens who filed a petition against the state of Colorado, the Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, demanding that they stop issuing oil and gas permits until they can show that the public health and safety and the environment are protected and that we're not making climate change worse, right?
So to put that in layman's terms, a bunch of kids got together and sued Colorado.
That's correct. And we lost at the agency level. The agency denied the petition, predictably, right? And they used all kinds of just weak, almost nonsensical reasons for that denial when you consider what the purpose of the statute that governs their actions, what it says. It says it's in the state interest to promote the responsible, balanced production of oil and gas resources in a manner consistent with the protection of public health, safety, and the environment, right? So our position was all along...
Have they read their own mission statement?
Well, apparently not.
Yeah.
They took the exact opposite approach and said, no, we have to balance oil and gas companies' economic interests, and when they come to us and say, oh, this will cost us money, we have to balance that against the public health and say, okay, well, public health is okay, but these guys are telling me it's going to cost them money, so I really have to keep giving them permits, right?
Wow.
And so that was what we were up against. We lost at the agency level, took an appeal to the district court, lost there. The district court sided with the industry and with the state, so we took another appeal to the Court of Appeals.
And were you involved in this?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And I was co-counsel with a lawyer for Our Children's Trust in Oregon. Our Children's Trust is bringing the Climate Kids lawsuit against the federal government, demanding that they pursue policies to mitigate climate change. So we filed an appeal, and just yesterday, the Court of Appeals ruled in our favor.
Wow.
In saying that our interpretation of the Oil and Gas Conservation Act, the statute that governs whether oil permits can be issued, says the public health, safety, and the environment must be elevated above this balancing of oil and gas interests, right? And so
that must have been quite a moment.
Yes, it was a huge victory.
So you took all the kids out for drinks, and by drinks I mean
Haven't seen them yet, except online.
Yeah, orange juice.
Chatusco Martinez is one of the lead plaintiffs. He's one of the founders of Earth Guardians in Boulder.
Yeah.
He's appeared before the UN several times and internationally known. Yeah. So these kids are leading the way.
The kids shall show us the way. It's so inspiring. It's funny that they have to take the lead on this.
Yeah, it's ironic, but in many ways it's really appropriate because it's their future. Ours is kind of looking in the rearview mirror now, right? But they're the ones with all their life ahead of them, and seeing what it's going to be like, and that's got to be pretty frightening.
Barbara here says Colorado's the largest fracking state in the U.S. Is that true? We have the most fracking?
No, I don't think so. I think Texas.
Maybe she meant, Texas. Yeah.
And North Dakota.
Texas always wins in size comparisons.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. All right. We're really, so this is a local story in Colorado and Boulder, but this is also obviously a national and international story. So locally, what's the game plan? How can we help? Well, how can everyone everywhere help?
Well, first, understand that even though we now have this appropriate interpretation of the statutes that govern oil and gas, we have to assert our rights, okay? And people have to understand that your individual rights are not the same as your local government's rights to regulate and prevent this activity, okay? So, because there's something called Dillon's Rule, which is an old rule, I mean, from the 1860s, that says because the state creates cities, the municipal corporation that is a city, and gives it its powers, it can take them away. That's the basis for preemption, okay? That's the sole basis for preemption.
So Dillon's Rule was like from the Wild West.
Literally,
Yeah.
it's from the Wild West.
Yeah.
And so that's what the state has been using to say that, well, if a city like Longmont or the city of Boulder wants to ban fracking, if that's just not just a purely local law, if it has implications, if it impacts state interests outside of Boulder, then we can preempt it, right? We can stop that city government from regulating.
I mean, the law makes some sense in the sense that if like some municipality said, we don't want to allow minorities, like some
But that's
ridiculous
a constitutional
law.
violation, okay?
I see.
And minorities would have the constitutional right to go into court and raise an equal protection claim or some kind of a constitutional law.
So this really
that's
only
not a state.
applies to the kind of ballots that local municipalities are
That's
going to
right.
pass. Like, we want to do this cool thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they should be allowed to do it.
Right.
And the people have rights that go beyond what the city government's rights are, the city council's rights.
Individuals do.
That's correct. Under the Constitution. Article 2, Section 3 of the Colorado Constitution.
Right.
We have the inalienable rights. What does inalienable means? Can't be taken away. They aren't granted by the state.
Yeah, fundamental.
There are natural rights,
Right.
okay? As human beings, they're
Right.
human rights, right? And we have the right to protect our lives, our liberties, obtain our safety and our happiness, right? And our property. So people of Boulder County, for example, we have a constitutional right to protect our open space from oil and gas drilling. Because keep in mind, modern fracking, the latest version of fracking, they have to use pipelines to get the product, the natural gas or the oil, from the fracking wells to the processing facility and then into big pipelines to go, overseas. That's
Right.
we're fracking here.
Well,
we're saying,
luckily-
let's frack here so we can ship it overseas.
Right,
How
exactly.
much sense does that make?
Especially when there's so much leakage.
Right.
But what is wonderful is that Trump, in his benevolence, has just today, I got the New York Times alert, re-upped the Keystone pipeline that Obama had rejected after a lot of public pressure.
Yeah.
So now that'll be so much easier thanks to Trump.
And we can't do a lot about that right now, except for civil disobedience.
Could the Earth
actions.
Guardians sue about the Keystone pipeline next?
Yes, yes, they
Really?
could.
Oh.
And who knows?
Yeah.
There may be suits that come down the road. But locally, let's say that the state authorizes permits for fracking in Boulder County, and they want to run pipelines across our open space. Okay? I mean, these pipelines, we know they leak, they blow up, they explode. They've got a burn radius that is massive. And so this is an environmental disaster in the making.
When the Standing Rock protest was going on, a major leak happened quite close by. Yeah.
And so everything they were saying about we're water protectors, we need to protect the water supply and oil and gas and all that's nonsense. You know, this is perfectly safe, right?
Yeah.
Well, of course not.
Of course not.
And it's always they can always say that until the next pipeline bursts or we discover tools to find out how much is being leaked, how much methane is being leaked from these pipelines, right, and these operations, and what that is doing to the greenhouse gas emissions.
So if you're just tuning in, you can help this video reach beyond the choir. The choir is good. We want to inspire you, and we want to empower. You're going to tell us how we can help.
Yeah.
But if you can give this a like or a share. Any of that ups the, helps it get through the Facebook algorithm out to many, many more people. So if you're appreciating Dan's time and wisdom on this, give it some likes, give it a share, anything you can do. A comment is great. If you want to comment, ask Dan any questions, we're here for you. So if you can flood this with some likes, that would really help this video. You know, this video should ideally get out to thousands and thousands of people in the next couple days. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and so what else we're going to do is after understanding that your rights are not the same as the city government or the county government's rights, then we're going to start asserting those rights in sort of people's litigation, right? And so that's what, I'm helping people to understand those rights and practically what they can do in when the state, comes knocking and says, okay, we're going to give these oil and gas companies carte blanche. They can go wherever they want in Boulder County.
Destroy your farm, whatever.
Right, then we're going to have a strategy for how do we, as citizens, push back. Because Boulder County, just yesterday, they issued the strongest regulations in Colorado, right? But at the same breath,
against fracking,
yeah. But only to regulate fracking.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Where it can be done,
right.
How quickly it can be done, and in the same breath, the county commissioners had to acknowledge that these regulations probably aren't enough.
And they can't, the county commissioners are somewhat powerless, or they can't say no.
Because of Dillon's rule.
Right.
All right.
So who the hell was Dillon, and what was Dillon's problem?
Judge John Dillon from Iowa.
I'm sure he was well-intentioned.
He was a corporate lawyer, of course. All right.
Wow.
So, naturally speaking, he wanted to set up a rule that said, we can do whatever we want as a state, because corporations can then control the state, right, and then impose their will on municipalities and on local governments and on communities, and that's what's happened, literally.
So how do we here and elsewhere? How do we, how can we help? How can we stop fracking?
Well, you can first of all understand the impacts of what the Court of Appeals just did yesterday,
which is huge.
Right? Which is huge.
What was that moment like? Did you all throw your hats in the air?
I was in my kitchen.
Yeah.
I got an email with the link to the court site telling me I have an order from the Court of Appeals, and I decided not to open it until I had my coffee, because I didn't want to spoil my day.
Did you make your coffee on your oven with natural gas?
No, it's by electricity.
Okay.
With solar panels on my roof,
really?
by the way. Yes.
Nice.
From a local Boulder company.
Wow.
So made my coffee and then decided, okay, let's open this email. But before I did, I had this massive feeling that something good was about to happen.
After 3 rejections, 3 losses, right?
Yeah. I still had that feeling. Something good was about to happen.
And this was something you were litigating, or you were...
Yes, as co-counsel, on behalf of Earth Gardens.
Right.
And
wow.
So...
My arm doesn't work, but there you go. It's exciting.
And so got the order and immediately understood that the Court of Appeals, in the stroke of a pen, so to speak, reoriented everything from the Oil and Gas Commission's view of industry can do whatever it wants.
At the expense of the people.
At the expense of the public health, safety, and the environment, to no, the legislature said in 2007 and 8, when it amended this statute, public health, safety, and the environment is to be paramount, is to be elevated above these other considerations. The promotion.
So if it's okay for people, if it's healthy, then maybe we can do stuff.
That's right, but it's a bottom line, right? If it doesn't protect the public health and safety, it can't be done, right? It's not responsible and balanced if it doesn't protect the public health.
We can harm the people this much if we can have this much.
It's a little bit of a sliding scale, right? But with a bottom line that really is an expression of the precautionary principle, right? Which is, if we have enough evidence that there's a process that is going to harm public health and safety and the environment, right? And we may not have 100% proof yet that it's caused by this specific chemical or this specific activity. Nevertheless, it's enough that we should use caution. Okay? We should stop it.
And that's been pretty common. The precautionary principle is a really fundamental thing to understand. It's pretty common in Europe, right? And
It
it's
is.
pretty rare in the U.S.
It
right?
is, because the industry hates it.
So like GMOs, we can go forward with stuff that's not tested. We don't know if
Right.
it's safe for bees or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I call it in the Department of Public Health in Colorado issued in our proceeding at the agency level, which we lost. Department of Public Health issued an astonishing statement. They said, because we had made the statement in our petition that there's conclusive, evidence that fracking is harming public health and the environment, right? They said, oh no, we've looked at those studies, and because you can't show that it is absolutely
Right.
conclusive,
Right.
then the agency should just continue permitting, right?
It's like saying there's no proof that cigarettes are, cause lung cancer.
100%.
Because you could get lung cancer from, breathing polluted air and other sources.
Right.
Right.
Nevertheless, we have all this evidence.
So you can keep smoking all you want.
Yeah, and that's in the face of hundreds of studies that have been put out in the last 4 or 5 years,
Right.
showing 96% of them showing very strong correlations between oil and gas operations and all kinds of public health problems, and as well as really negative impacts on climate change. Right?
What are those? Yeah, so climate change, obviously, they've announced that spring is coming 20 days earlier in Colorado now, 10 days nationally. But even if you don't necessarily care about climate change, I was just in Miami, they're spending $50 million or whatever, pumping
Building
water
up
out every
seawalls.
day. Yeah, and pumping out water that's still getting through.
Just from the hard rain.
Yeah, so just economically, it's already a huge factor. We're losing tens of millions of trees to the expanded range of the pine beetle, but even if you don't care about all that, which affects both Republicans and Democrats, everyone, and children, what are the public health? What are the actual public health risks? Like, what could it do to me or my family?
Well, there's effects on your endocrine systems, brain health, asthma rates spike in areas in relatively close proximity to oil and gas operations. There's evidence.
Developmental stuff for children.
Yes.
What's endocrine? I'm ignorant.
Well, I'm not exactly sure, but it's the systems that basically process your food and energy, and
So nothing essential, basically.
except for life.
Yeah.
That's it. But newborns and maternal health is impacted. We've now had a recent study from Colorado that certain childhood cancers, leukemias, have a higher incidence rate in relation to oil and gas proximity.
Yeah.
Now, is there 100% proof
Right.
of causation yet?
Right.
No, but this is an area where I call it the Department of Health is insisting on the frack till they drop dead system, right?
Whoops.
Because only when they drop dead will we have 100% proof that that at least you were harmed, right?
Yeah.
And that's the opposite of the precautionary principle. When there's enough evidence that is raising alarm bells and says, look, would you want your children to be facing that kind of a risk?
Right.
Then we should stop it, study it, and figure out whether it can be done safely or not. Right?
It's so interesting that, yesterday on the cover of every paper in the whole world, there's coverage of those who tragically lost their lives in a terrorism incident. And that is horrible. But when you talk about tens of millions of people losing their livelihoods or their health or their children's health to climate change or to environmental threats like fracking, we don't seem as engaged as a public because it's a gradual, it's like the frog in the hot water thing.
Except we're starting to see, the impacts, and they're arriving daily now, right? And closer, and you're starting to see that these are not coincidental, right? And now we're understanding to a much greater degree the interconnectedness of everything, right? That the impacts of increasing greenhouse gas emissions in one part of the world has has devastating impacts in another part of the world, right? And all that is because this is a system. It's an ecosystem. We're just part of it, right?
Right.
We're not separate and dominant over it. And in fact, if we keep going the way we're going, we're going to find out real quickly how much we're just part of the system.
Well, I just want to applaud you to hear a lawyer talk about ecosystem and how interdependence and these things is revelatory. Normally I hear Buddhist folks or Native Americans, whomever I'm interviewing, but to hear a lawyer, in a sharp dress shirt talking about that, tucked in shirt. That's rare in Elephant.
Father Thomas Berry, you can thank him for that.
Yeah,
all right?
Good man.
Yeah.
Wendell Berry. You like Wendell Berry? Another Berry?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let me take a moment touching with some comments or questions. Is that good?
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
Let's do it.
People want to know things. Melina says the endocrine system, she's helping us out, is a collection of glands that secrete hormones like the adrenals or thyroid, for instance. And yes, fracking impacts. Barbara
I knew that.
has some love for Cliff's comment, which I don't see yet. Suzanne is saying if people in Boulder County want to help, or if anyone knows anyone in Boulder, you can come to a legal strategy kickoff meeting with Dan tomorrow, Saturday.
2 to 4 p.m. tomorrow at the Universalist Church in South Boulder.
The Unitarian Universalist Church in South Boulder.
Correct.
Cool. Is that the one with the millions of solar panels on it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's on Pennsylvania Avenue,
Oh yeah, Pennsylvania.
Southeast Boulder.
Okay, no. Yeah, I'm thinking of one in way South Boulder. Suzanne, if people in Boulder, that's
no, you're thinking about the United Church of Christ. That's near my neighborhood. That's
kind of near Sovo. Cliff is saying if the commissioners enforce the Oil and Gas Act, they are complicit in the destruction it creates. Yeah, well said. Yeah, it's interesting because I've talked with Hickenlooper and all that. It's just mysterious to me how people can sleep at night, knowing that they're negatively impacting the people they're sworn to serve.
You would think, but they're insulated. They have their own form of a bubble, and they have people praising them all the time about what they're doing, and just keep doing what you're doing until they come to Boulder, or to Lafayette, or to Erie, or to Broomfield, or to Fort Collins, and now he can go almost nowhere.
Heck.
Without being, faced with opposition.
Yeah.
Because people have had enough.
Yeah.
Right? They've just had enough.
Yeah, he's a turncoat. It's really disappointing.
Yeah.
We all loved him,
Yeah, wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meg from Boulder here. Could you talk about some of the things we can do to make our voices heard? The meeting tomorrow, what else can we do?
Well, you can use your social network systems to spread the word about, the Court of Appeals opinion, and anytime somebody has, raises a complaint about an oil spill or, a fracking rig that's going up in their neighborhood, spread the word, right? Yeah. And
so
understand
spread the word,
your
so
rights.
Share. So do some research, get inspired, share, watch a documentary maybe. Awareness is really it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we're doing all of Elephant. That's what we're for. That's why we're hosting you today, just to get it out to our readership. And the good news is that the more you get engaged, the more inspired you get. It's not the opposite. You don't actually get depressed. You get depressed when you're kind of like trying to ignore everything.
Yeah, no,
That's
no question.
Yeah.
This gives people energy, right?
Yeah.
Getting engaged and learning that your neighbors who you didn't know before, right, are share the same concerns and want to know what they can do, and then you get together with them, and suddenly you've got a community that gives you energy rather than sapping your energy, making you want to go to bed and pull the covers over your head.
Sorry, my phone is not cooperating. I'll just leave it right down here. The phone is clearly being Hickenlooper is operating the phone and making it slide down. It's cooperating with the NSA.
Well, the tide is turning. Right? I mean, it really is. There's a shift going on. People are waking up. They're understanding. A lot of their hopes about that government will do this for us. Government will protect us. Right? those are all being pulled away now.
But I would say, as someone who, I love the U.S., I love government, I'm a liberal patriot environmentalist, is that government actually can function, it can serve. You just need people who actually care about the people and not just corporations or fundraising.
And we've got to restore democratic processes, right?
Right.
So that people actually can have an impact on their government, right? Instead of just corporations dominating government with special interest money.
Right.
And
well
so
said.
those have to change.
How do we help that? Because that is, there was a big ballot on our last round to remove our, it was like they were asking for us to vote to remove our power to vote, basically, on ballots.
Yeah, to make it harder.
Yeah.
On a statewide initiative level. And the Supreme Court's opinions in the cases in Longmont and Fort Collins and Lafayette, those opinions where they overturned fracking bans, they did not deal with the actual rights that were used in those cases. These were people's initiatives, right? These weren't city council ordinances that were passed. But the court only dealt with them like they were city council ordinances. And there's a reason for that. Because when you look at what the people's rights are to pass initiatives under Article 5 of the Colorado Constitution, they are superior rights. They're superior to the legislature, they're superior to the executive branch, meaning the governor, right? Can't be vetoed by the governor.
Wow.
So people can go to my website, minddrivelegal.com.
Minddrivelegal.com.
Go to my blog, click on the blog link, and there's an article there called Seizing the Initiative Against Preemption. You can understand what your rights are, your constitutional rights, to pass initiatives that cannot be preempted. Right? So I'm in the process of developing legal strategies to restore those rights, empower people to start passing initiatives again at the local level, right? Which is the most effective at the local level, to do all kinds of things to help restore their control, local control over their health, their safety, their welfare, and their environment.
So all this must be expensive, right? All these lawsuits and appeals, and I have no idea how you're making a living doing this. So is there a way that we can support this wherever we are? Can we donate to something?
Yes.
Can we help the Earth Guardians? How do we do this?
At this gathering tomorrow at the Unitarian Universalist Church, there'll be an opportunity to donate. And we're in the process of, developing the legal strategies first. Once they're public, then there will be, much more effective and easier ways to donate through crowdfunding. But there are private fundraising efforts going on. If you want more information about that, you can contact me through my email, dan@minddrivelegal.com.
Awesome. Sorry, dan@minddrivelegal.com. We can type that in the comments for people. And then I won't give out your mobile right now. And then for now, everyone can get involved in awareness, sharing, educating, inspiring yourself. And it really is inspiring. Like, people love to watch Star Wars and the 8 movies around Star Wars, but this is like the real resistance, the real local rebellion. People like Suzanne, who was on the show before, it's incredibly inspiring to be around all of you. And so anything else we can do? Anything else to cover?
Yeah, I mean, there are going to be opportunities for, just creative, nonviolent civil disobedience. Okay?
Right.
I mean, and in part, a lot of these legal actions are nonviolent civil disobedience.
Yeah.
We're pushing back against a legal regime. Right. But there are other opportunities, including what's going on in Lafayette. They just passed an ordinance, I think, to create a right to a healthy climate, right? And so even though the state tells them it's illegal and their city council even, says it can't be enforced, they did it anyway, right? So this is civil disobedience. There's going to be lots of opportunities for you to say, okay, I'm going to give money because I can't do something else right now, so I'm going to give money to support an action that's going on here, right? Yep. And all of that is exercising your powers to reassert your human rights.
Well, there's a lot of thanks for you here in the comments. Seems like a lot of inspiration. Folks, thanks for tuning in. Dan, you got anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right, everyone give Dan some love. This is a lawyer devoting his life and livelihood to benefiting we the people. So
Appreciate
Dan,
it.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks.
And if you want to help us all not get fracked, share this, like this, read other articles, go to his website, get educated and inspired. And thank you so much.
Awesome.
All right. And in Boulder, you can show up once more 2 to 4 at the Unitarian Universalist Church Saturday, tomorrow. So if you know anyone in Boulder, let them know.
Or any of the other communities, Broomfield, Lafayette, anywhere
in
near.
the Front Range, basically. Yeah. Great. Dan, thank you, man.
Appreciate it.